Alrighty, Claire, would you like to take it
So
away?
this is Katie Lee from Colorado, and I'm Claire Jens, your host, I guess. And this is our podcast called 1,000 Little MS Things. I'm discussing today with Katie about MS and all things MS, I guess. And this is a conversation, just chatty chat back and forth, being relaxed. So our idea of chat.
Yes.
So we'll start off with saying to you, when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in 2018, but I had symptoms for like 25 years. So I started my 20s with symptoms, but didn't get officially diagnosed till 2018.
Wow.
Maybe we could ask you as well before we deep dive into all things MS.
Yeah,
that's all right. Where did you grow up? And tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago, in Illinois. I'm the youngest of 5. And since I graduated, I went to college in Minnesota and then did a year of volunteer work after college in Selma, Alabama. And I met my husband. He was a fellow volunteer. And then we kind of lived all over. We moved to Vermont. Then we moved to Ohio. And then I've been in Colorado for 25 years this year. So I've kind of lived all over in the Midwest, in the South, and the Northeast, and now the West of the United States. But this is the longest I've lived anywhere. So I'm in Colorado now, and I have 3 children, 3 kind of young adults. I have twin boys who are 22, and my daughter's 19, and they go to school out of state, in another state for college, and they're graduating this year. And then she lives at home and commutes to our local university that's like 10 or 15 minutes from here. So, and Claire, the reason I reached out to Claire is because my husband suddenly passed away at age 50 in 2021. So her story was so similar to mine, having 3 kids and a widow and MS, that I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was watching myself.
Our stories are very similar, just a bit surreal, really.
You lost your ex-husband from a cardiac event as well, but that's not in the movie.
No,
so I'm
not.
not sure if Katie was aware of that.
In the movie, it's actually portrayed that Mark then died of a car accident. But actually, in real life, he died of a cardiac arrest when he was 48. Yeah. So it's similar to your husband.
Same thing. My husband was 50. He was on a phone call, and he was in great shape. I mean, it was completely unexpected. And suddenly, it was like a week after my boys had graduated high school. So it just, my daughter was 15 and the boys were 18 and heading to college. So I kind of had to get my act together to get them off to college within 2 months. But they did it, and they're graduating. So it was a very rough time. And my MS pretty much tanked pretty quickly after that. I don't know about for you, but it went downhill quickly.
I think when my husband died of a heart attack at the gym, my MS got worse straight away.
Yeah, so did mine. Yeah,
trauma is like a really bad sign for your MS, and I believe that now. It wrecks.
And there's nothing you can do. I mean, it's not like you can change it. And yeah, so I started using a cane full time after he passed away. I was kind of declining. So the other thing is I was diagnosed in 2028 with remitting relapsing, just because I was new to MS. And then within a year, I wasn't recovering. And so then I went to a specialist, and they said I had progressive MS. And so I was kind of slowly progressing. And then when Chris passed away, it was just quick. I mean, I just went downhill so quickly. And so, that's it. I mean, I'm pretty sure I had it for 25 years before I got diagnosed. And I think that's why I was probably progressive. I never had any treatment but I had a lot of symptoms in my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. It just took a long time for anyone to believe me. I had a lot of doctors doubted it was anything. And
we talked to a lot of people with MS, and we hear so often that people say the doctors doubt them. And doctors always say they're a bit nutty, they're a bit crazy, they've got dementia, they've got other problems, but there's not. They're a bit mad, and they're not. I think it's quite annoying that people doubt us at all. We know our bodies.
And I always knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I hear you totally there.
I got better when I got pregnant. Did you have improvements when you were pregnant? Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
Pregnancy is like the elixir of life. I feel like every time I had a baby, when I was pregnant each time, I felt $1,000,000. I felt so healthy and so well, no problems at all. Then I had 3 babies in a row for that reason, really. The baby, I felt great, and then after the 3rd baby, got really sick. But during pregnancy, I felt perfect. Just bizarre.
Yep.
No drugs, nothing, just well.
I had the same thing. Yeah. And that's, I think common, but I didn't know at the time that was related because I didn't know I had an autoimmune. So I think that's pretty typical, but it's almost like we could have just kept having babies and then we'd be good. But I think it affects you worse afterwards.
Yeah. I think it's like to me the symptoms pile up behind you when you're pregnant. They kind of wait in a queue to attack you when you're finishing babies. The queue of illnesses attack you then. I think while you're pregnant, you feel $1,000,000. It's awesome, but it goes away. Yeah. You can't be pregnant forever, unfortunately.
Exactly. You get the payback. How old were your kids when your ex-husband passed away?
They were 11, 9, 8.
Oh, though they were young. Okay, that's even younger.
Oh, yeah.
That's hard. Mine at least were, teenagers. I mean, not that it's any easier, but you had little kids.
Little kids. When we moved straight from England, we live in England, of course. We moved from England back to Australia. I mean, and about 2 months later, we were here. To be I upped and ran. Once he died, I thought, well, man, I'm done. No more reason to be in England. I'm going to move back to Australia. So I was the best thing I ever did.
Good choice. And you grew up in Australia, right? That's where you grew up?
I was here till I was 24. I went to England for my work. I stayed in England, obviously, for 20 years. And then I moved back once Mark passed away. So I came straight back here. So it was a fast turnaround of life there. It was a great thing to do. It was a horrible thing to do, but also a great thing to do.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I stayed in my same town because we had lived here for so long, and I just downsized to a townhouse because it was just too much to keep up with my big house without he was physically, the one who did everything, and now it just was getting too hard. So I just moved in my same town, but to a smaller, easier to manage place.
Yeah. And your community stayed the same then? Your friends are around you, your family's around you.
Yeah.
That's so key for MS. Have your family and your community around you staying solid is so key for MS. I believe if you break it apart, if you move apart from somewhere else, MS gets worse again. So you need your community with you to help you out, to help you to sort out life. And when you're sick and you're by yourself and someone dies, life is very hard. It's very difficult. Yeah. I know that very, very well.
And so, Katie, can I ask you now, so how long have you been diagnosed for now?
So it's going to be 7 years this year. So right now it's a little over 6 years. And like I said, like at the beginning, they were like, oh, everybody has remitting relapsing. And I was like, great, okay. And then when I didn't get better, then that's when they said, it's progressive. And then I ended up going to the Mayo Clinic, which is kind of a famous medical place. Yeah, it's kind of famous. And they kind of said the same thing and I wasn't really responding to medication. Like most people respond pretty well, and I wasn't really seeing any results. So I went there for a second opinion, and now I'm on a clinical trial for a BTK inhibitor. So I've been on that for 2 years.
What's the trial planning to do? What's the purpose of the trial?
So it's a new drug that the BTK inhibitors are kind of the next wave of MS drugs. I mean, the results aren't out yet. So I'm 2 years into the trial, and hopefully it'll finish up this year, but they're hoping, everybody's always trying to slow down the progression. I didn't really notice it with the other drugs. So I was like, well, why not? I'll give it a try, because the other drugs weren't really helping me. I mean, I was declining so quickly on them.
Can I ask what the drugs you were on before? What drugs were they?
I was on Ocrevus for a couple of years. Yeah. And that helps most people. I think I was also on it when Chris passed away. So there were so many other things going on, but it wasn't making a big enough difference. I started on Copaxone, which is kind of the first typical drug. That didn't do anything. And then they switched me to Ocrevus, and I was on that for 2.5 years. And then I've been on this for 2 years. but the decline is still, I don't know. I can't really tell if it's working because there's not a lot of measurement because I'm declining every day, but some days are better than others, as you know. Some days are good and some days are not. One day I'm like, it's working. And the next day I'm like, it's not. Who knows?
I wish that when you put your finger in like a plug and they give you like a score out of 10. It never happens though. You know what another round today, I have no idea. It's the same or worse or whatever, but you never quite know.
So every day is so different. And sometimes, like for me, the mornings are really hard. I don't know for you, it's different for everyone, but I really take like hours to kind of get my body moving and then I'm better at night. And most people are the opposite.
Yeah, I'm a morning person only, non-night person at all.
I feel better at night, which is unusual. So like I work at home in the mornings because I can't, like my legs don't really work in the morning. So I work at home and then I go into work like after being up for a couple hours. It's kind of different. I don't think that's typical.
Very different. Because I think I know, I'm like someone who, in the morning times I've lost energy or have enough energy. And then after lunchtime, my energy goes downhill very fast. It's like nighttime, I'm just like a pot plant. Can't do much then. But I can like sit and watch TV, whatever it is. But in terms of your work, can I ask what you do?
Yeah, so I work in an elementary school. I don't know if that's what you call them there, but I work in early childhood. So I'm really lucky because I'd been working there for 6 years before I got diagnosed. So they've been super accommodating. So they let me work from home and I'm called a community liaison. So I work with families and help give them resources in the community to help them support their kids in school. So my background's in social work. And so it's kind of a social work job. But they've been great about I'm like, I can't come in at 8:00 when school starts. So I come in later, just so that I can get some work done at home. And then, like they gave me a handicap parking spot this year. And now, they're making accommodations so that that I can keep doing my job.
They sound awesome. They sound like very good employers.
Yeah. They are. It's great. I mean, I only work 20 hours a week. So that helps I've never worked full time. So that is better. I don't know. I mean, I've always worked part-time because I was raising my kids too, but I don't think I could work 40 hours a week, like out of my house would be really hard. So I go in 2 days a week. I work from home 1. And then, so I only work 3 days a week. And I physically only have to go in 2 days so that it's perfect. It kind of keeps me and I love my job. So that really helps,
It's good for your mental health too. I mean, work is good for your sense of self. It's very good.
It got me through some hard times.
Katie, can we ask what your symptoms are?
Yeah. So sometimes I think I'm just not a typical MS patient. So the reason I got diagnosed finally, so I'll back up a second. In my 20s, I had really terrible leg pains, like stabbing, shooting leg pains. And they would come and go, which is typical with MS. But so I'd go to the doctor and I'd be like, do you have them right now? And I'd say no. But I had them, I had them yesterday and then I'll have them another week from now. So that I had 7 years of terrible leg pains, like sharp shooting leg pains, which I think now might be that, I don't know how to say it, Lemaire's, where you put your neck down and it's like it's an MS symptom, but I didn't know what it was. So it might have just been, I was putting my neck down and it was happening because I always felt like I was having like an electric shock. And I had a rheumatologist tell me when I was about 25, I don't think you have MS. So I must have had something that looked like it, but he never tested me. He just said, I don't think you have it. So I obviously looked like something MS-y. But then I got pregnant and like I said, everything went away other than the fatigue, but I just thought I had 3 kids under 3. I just thought I was a tired mom, and that's what everyone would tell me. You're just tired. So, then I started getting like vertigo around age 40. I started getting bouts of vertigo. And again, they were like, oh, I see neurological symptoms, but no one did an MRI. So they just kind of ignored it. And then in 2018, when I finally got diagnosed, I would do like a regular 5-mile walk with my friends. And one day I was walking and my foot was slapping and dragging. And my friends were like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. And then it happened again. And then I got diagnosed pretty quickly because they were like, that's a neurological symptom. But my odd thing is that was my left leg and my right leg is what's bad now. So that's where I'm just kind of an odd case because it started in one leg. My right leg, I have a pretty bad foot drop in my right foot. And my left leg is not great, but my right leg is worse. So over time, it kind of switched legs. So I use a cane full time outside of the home. Just because my balance is not great and my legs are not great. I'm slow and I trip a lot and, catch myself most of the time. Not always. I had a big old, bruise on my nose recently, but I feel like mine's mostly the legs. And then when I get really tired, my hand will go. Like writing is harder. At the end of the day, if I'm really fatigued, like eating with a fork is a little harder. Just everything kind of stiffens up in my right hand. And then I have your typical kind of, bladder and, it's not terrible. It's manageable at this point, but, I have kind of your typical MS. I'm pretty like typical in most ways other than like being more energetic in the evenings and that it switched legs. That isn't a typical MS thing.
No, I've not heard that one. No, I haven't heard of switching, but everything else sounds pretty similar. Unfortunately, we talked to a lot of people on this podcast, and that's similar. There's a strain of symptoms that are very similar. Like the diagnosis part, the pain, all these things are very similar. Just kind of it's sad but true. That's how we are.
And the fatigue comes and goes. I manage the fatigue much better now. Like at the beginning, I just kept doing everything the same and that did not work. No. So I quickly figured out like that wasn't working because I would just be exhausted. Now, I'll have my days where like if I'm really fatigued, I can't hold a conversation. And it doesn't last long. I'm just like, I got to go lay down. And then usually, if I lay down for 15 minutes or a half hour, then I'm fine. It's almost like everything's in slow motion. When I'm that fatigued, I'm like, oh, I can't hold a good conversation right now. But I don't let myself do that often.
Do you get brain fog at all?
Well, that's kind of what I think of as brain fog because like I couldn't if it doesn't really happen at work. It usually happens when I come home from work and I'm exhausted and then I'm like talking to my daughter or something. And I'm like, oh, I can't talk right now. I need to go lay down. But I've figured out how to manage it so I don't push it to that point all the time. Brain wise, I'd say my executive function is what I noticed the most because I was always I had pretty good executive function and now it's definitely not as good. It's okay. And I just have to, I set a lot of alarms. I take a lot of notes, I leave myself a lot of notes just to keep up with everything. Cause now that I'm the only parent and I work, it's just trying to keep up with everything.
So you've learned strategies to get around your issues now. I understand that entirely.
Yeah. I definitely have. And that's sort of why the morning, if I went into work at 8:00, I'm not super sharp. It takes me, it's almost like my body has to wake up and it takes me a while to do that. So part of it is I can sit on my computer on the couch, but I can't really be up and about and that I don't know. That's just how my body is. I think it has something to do with, I just think my nervous system isn't awake in the morning and it takes me a while.
Yeah. I'm the opposite. At nighttime, my brain shuts off. In the morning, my brain in the morning wakes up and it's 100% going, and then by lunchtime, it's going down, 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 down. Exact opposite of yours. I'm like a hourglass going down, 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 very clearly by evening times.
Well, that's the funny thing with MS is nobody has it the same. We all have a lot of similarities, but we all have such different bodies that, it's hard. Even your story was so interesting because I don't think I've ever met another person with MS and who's a widow with at our age and, a younger widow. And that was seriously. Yeah, I couldn't get over it. I saw the movie and I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of my story. Other than the marrying your high school boyfriend, but otherwise it was the nice story.
Yeah, then I'm unlucky. That was down the line. That can't speak. See that? I have that too. I get speech, whatever it's called. Yeah. Right, my speech gets kind of caught up. But my marriage now to John is my oh, there we go, gone. My boyfriend from school is now, but back then it was not boyfriend from school.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll you talk. Chloe, when I get like this, I get a bit tongue tied. I go, Chloe, you talk.
Oh, you're doing so great, but I got you back.
Thank you, darling.
I get it.
You're doing very well, both of you. I wanted to ask you, Katie, how have your kids been as like a support for you, or how has that whole experience been now being a single mum and obviously being sick with MS? Like, what's that experience been like for you and your kids?
It's hard. I mean, I would say parenting, because like I don't even call myself a single parent. I call myself an only parent because there's no like divorced dad that they see on the weekends. I'm everything, right? I have to be the emotional and the physical. I mean, they've been great because they were older, so they kind of had been watching me with my MS. I hadn't had it. I only had it not even 3 years when Chris died. So, that was a little, I wasn't that progressed at that point. So I think for the kids, they didn't really see the decline until after he passed away, when it really started to go downhill. I think it's definitely been hardest on my daughter because she lives at home, and she definitely does a lot of caretaking. Like, she just helps me with a lot. Like, can you take out the garbage? Can you walk the dog? Things that are really hard for me. So the boys have been away at school, and then when they come home, they're great about helping because they know that, they've been gone and they want to help. But, they kind of went on and lived their lives because they've been gone for 4 years. And so I would say it falls on her more. And as a mom, you feel bad because I'm like, you're 19. This isn't your role. This isn't her job to take care of me. But I know she, I think she also worries about me. I think, it's hard on kids she always said, I thought dad would be there to take care of you, like you're kind of assuming your partner is going to be there when things are hard.
I know that feeling. Yes, that's quite sad. The whole thought. Then that's true.
And I think as well, that's why you have your family. And I can imagine, only can I imagine, if it was my mum in the position, you love your mum so much, and as both of you became the only parent and had to parent and do both while also being sick. So, your kids would be so grateful for that. You step up for them when you can, and that's, as kids, we're there to do that for our parents as well. So I can only imagine like the times of guilt that you would feel. I'm sure you felt that too, Claire.
My boys are small. It's hard to feel. They were great and they were helpful, but I think that they weren't aware of the help I needed. They were too small to understand. Or actually, no, not true. They kind of, maybe one did, but they kind of, I felt it was unfair on them because they were tiny. Well, they were like 10. Yeah. They were little, so they didn't really know how to help out. They helped where they could, but they didn't understand. I'm sure they realized at school that their mum was different to everyone else's mum. They knew that. So I felt bad about that. But, I couldn't help that. It's just fact. But they stepped up and had to a bit. Not a lot, but a bit.
And there's just, times in life you just have to accept the love and the care and know that you would do it for them and you did in your own way. But I can imagine if there's any only parents out there or single parents with MS, they could really relate to that. So it's so lovely that you spoke about that and, jotted on that topic, because it's important and it's just the real things that come with life.
We'll see how I'm trying to get them to live their lives so that they feel like they're independent, and I try to do as much as I can for myself, but I can't do everything. And so I do the best I can and try to hire people if I can't, or, enlist a friend to help me so that it doesn't all fall on the kids. But yes.
Have you had in your experience with MS, have you had any friends, this is a random question, but have you had any friends pull away from you, from your diagnosis, who surprised you and they've actually not been a good friend after all?
Yeah, for sure. I just think some people, and it's really, it was hard and it's still hard. I think same thing with Chris passing away. Some people stepped up that I wasn't expecting, and some people back off because they don't know what to do. And it's kind of the same thing. For a while, I kind of felt like I had on my forehead, I felt like it said MS widow. Like people would see me in town and be like, oh, there's that widow with MS. Like it's not a real big town. It's not small, but it's not big. And we all I kind of felt like I was that person where people would be like, oh, that was,
Oh, right.
and sort of like, oh, dang, she's the one who has MS and lost her husband. I kind of got over that. But for like the first year, I sort of felt like I had that, like, I felt like I was wearing something that said that. So people would kind of be all awkward. I think it's come back. It's gotten better. I think that first couple years, like people didn't know how to support me between like my diagnosis and then my husband. It was a lot, and I get it. It's a lot, and they're all raising their own families and have a lot going on. But I think some people, like I said, some people stepped up that I never would have expected, and some people backed off that I was expecting to be there.
Well said. Good way to analyze that. It's surprising. Who's a really good friend? You're like, wow, you're a really good friend. You came out of the woodwork, and here you are being an awesome friend. It's nice feeling that there are people out there that are really good. It's surprising.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of friends that understand what I'm going through. That I think is the hardest. I have one friend with lupus, and she kind of understands the fatigue and some other things, but other people, I'm tired too. And you're like, okay, like people try to relate, but it's not an easy disease to relate to. So I think that's really hard unless you have gone through something, that maybe not the same disease, but something similar. I ran into my kid's old high school principal, and he had cancer, but he was using a cane now because it affected like his neurologic system. And it was like, we ended up chatting forever because it's so hard to find sort of people in their 50s that can relate to using a cane. Like not many people use a cane in their 50s. And like, it's hard to find those people.
Yeah. Trying to find people who are similar to yourself, similar stories, similar issues. It's probably the hardest thing to do. To find someone who's sort of that gives a shit, excuse my French, but they sort of like cares and is happy to talk to you about it. And actually, I think that's about the hardest thing to do, is to find someone who similar to you without being. It sounds very tragic and think I'm sick. I want a friend who's sick as me. That sounds very, but it's true. To find someone who understands where you're going through and understands where you've gone through it's hard to do. So, and as you're older, and you're like, you're back then, you're by yourself too. So you're by yourself, and people think we're a bit weird, and I think we're a bit awkward to be around, and so they actively try not to be around us. It's just that's so mean, but it's true.
I agree. I mean, that's part of it. I met a few people with MS when I first got diagnosed that I just knew through friends, and we get together every now and then, but all of them are doing really well, which is great. I mean, I'm so happy, but none of them no one uses a cane. No one understands, like you would meet them and have no idea, because I have 24 lesions, and like I have a friend who has 1 and has been getting treatment for 15 years. So she has no symptoms. And I'm like, that's great, but that isn't my life. By the time I got diagnosed, I had 24 lesions because I think I'd had it for so long. And so I had a lot of damage done before I even got diagnosed, where a lot of people got diagnosed early and, just did better. Not everybody, but, did better. So that's hard. It's hard to find people with progressive MS that maybe aren't, like physically as active.
And then Katie, can I ask you because it took so long for the diagnosis, can I ask what that experience and feeling was like when you were finally diagnosed?
Well, I mean, there was some relief because I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't have a name for it, but I knew, since my 20s, I knew something I was pretty healthy, and then all of a sudden it's like in my 20s when I'm young and I'm exercising and, getting married and have all these things. So it was a relief in some ways. And then in other ways, it's not really the diagnosis you want. But I also didn't really know that much about it at that point. I mean, you learn a lot quickly. Sorry. So, but I mean, I think finally I felt like someone believed me.
So a lot on the podcast we speak about, all the things, but also, what's been, you are obviously such a tough woman, like, the way you hold yourself and what you've been through, what has helped you get through all of the hardship?
That's a good question. I think my kids, because I think I live for my kids. I mean, I want to be as strong as I can, as healthy as I can for them. I mean, I know it should do it for me, but I think they're my motivator because I'm their only parent. So if I'm sort of like, oh, I don't really want to do this, or, one of them will call me and need something, I'm like, nope, you got to do this. And so I think they're my biggest motivator. And I think, I have a dog who I just adore and think is probably, he's like my emotional support animal. So we had gotten him like a year before Chris passed away, and he kind of turned into my support animal.
Okay, I love that. That's so nice. I love that.
It really, we hadn't had a dog in years, and I just kind of came at the right time to help me through this hard time. And then, like, for me, I do physical therapy. I just started cranial sacral therapy, which is like a new, I don't know if you've ever done that. Yeah. So I'm doing that, and I do physical therapy. I get massages every month. And then I just try to manage, like I said, I try to say yes to everything, which I know is everyone's saying say no, but I try to say yes. Okay. And then if I get invited out or to dinner with friends, I try to say yes, just to kind of make myself stay in the world. And, everyone kind of knows, we might have to park really close, or I'll use my handicap permit. But unless I'm really, like, we had a snowstorm and I was supposed to go out, and I was like, nope, I can't do the snow because it's like dangerous. I can't walk in the bad weather. So, but I try to say yes, because I'm kind of, I'm not invited as a couple anymore to couple things, and I have a disability. So sometimes people are like, ugh, that's an extra hassle. So I try to say yes when I get invited out. That's sort of my mom.
And always better to say yes and then cancel later, if you can't do it.
I say no if I have to, but I really try to say yes. And I push myself a lot, probably more than I should, but I'm a pusher. Like, I just always, that's my personality. I will push through, not so I get injured or hurt, but I will try hard to get through something. Like, if I really want to do it, I will set my mind to it and do it.
That's important.
That is important.
That's good too. Wow.
And then for the next chapter for you, Katie, what are things looking like? Where would you like to see yourself go? Have you got any dreams that you're wanting to, tick off the old bucket list?
Question. Well, I'm trying to keep traveling because I'm just worried it's going to get harder. I mean, it is getting harder. I'm not going to lie. For me with MS, having, like, knowing where I'm going and where I'm parking and where the bathroom is, and, those routines are much easier. So traveling always throws that off because you just don't know what you're going to get. And I still have kids that want to travel with me. So we went to Europe last year. I'm trying really hard to just keep making travel plans and keep that in my, bucket list. I don't want to give up some of those things. I know at some point in life it might just get too hard, but right now, like, we went to New York and I wasn't walking well. And after a day, I was like, I need a wheelchair, or else I'm going to be in my hotel room for the weekend with kids. And
wow.
Yeah. So I got a wheelchair delivered, and I had a great time because I was like, I'm going to ruin this weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, keep doing that.
We do what we've seen from A Thousand Little Things Facebook page there. Of course, there are a lot of listeners that are also in a wheelchair, and, talking about how not fearing being in a wheelchair, it's something that Claire speaks about a lot.
I've said before, and I actually feel my mindset was wrong then. I think being in a wheelchair, I think having the disease now for 6 years, my initial thoughts about MS and wheelchairs was like end of the world. But now I've grown up now, and I now understand things better now. There's actually a way now that a wheelchair can be liberating, and I can make life easier. So it's not like this horrible thing that I thought it was back when I was young. Now I think it can make things actually easier. So in a way, it's kind of not like a horrible death now. It's actually it's a good thing. So I should be more mindful of how it's actually, some people do it for a good reason, because they have to, and it's great for them. So I will be that person too when it happens.
I think it's like a mindset you have to get over. Like, went on the trip thinking I was going to walk, and I don't know if it was the weather or what happened, but I was like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So my kids can have fun without me, or I can have fun. And I found a wheelchair company, and I had a great time because they could push me everywhere, and I wasn't holding anyone back. Part of it is I just move so slow in the world that it's hard to travel with people because everything is on my time. So the wheelchair made it their time, and I just got pushed along. Like, it was great.
When you went to New York for the weekend on the wheelchair that time, I'm just curious, how would it make you as a person? How do you feel? Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel anything at all?
What I really noticed is like my kids really liked it because they weren't worried about me. Because when I'm walking and we're in Times Square and there's thousands of people, and I realized it's a lot, like it made their life so much easier and more fun because they weren't worried about me like falling or, someone bumping into me. And I got over it pretty quickly because I realized I'm like, this is not going to be fun. Like if you can't walk at all,
Yeah.
that there's not a lot you can do in a big city when you can't move around. So I think like I realize the impact it has on them versus me. Like, and people are so kind. I mean, that's the other thing. We think people are judging us. I mean, they do. I mean, some people do, but you quickly realize people are also very kind to people with disabilities. I mean, most people in the world, not everybody, but people are very accommodating when we travel.
Yeah.
I mean, people are not everywhere, but most places that we've been, most people are very kind about it.
Yeah, I think that's just so, we haven't really spoken on that topic much.
No, we haven't enough. We should do more.
It's just, so important to share. And Claire's really spoken about how, this journey is changing your mindset on things that you feared a lot in your life. And we just really appreciate you sharing part of that story.
Thank
because
you.
I know that it will be felt definitely for the listeners.
No, we're not the only ones.
Unfortunately, we're not alone, no.
There's a lot of us.
See, in America, you guys have like 1 million people with MS, apparently.
We have a ton. Yeah, you don't have as many, right, in Australia?
We have like 34,000, I think, here, apparently. Which is hardly any, really. Tiny. No, this is the thing. In this country, we're sort of minorities, really. We're nothing. We're not really witnessed enough. So our film actually was quite, I hope, and this podcast too, trying to raise the awareness of the disease. Because there's so few of us here in this country, there were people just don't know Norse, but they don't understand it at all. So I'm hoping that this podcast and the film raises awareness, understanding of this disease. So it's not understood in Australia at all. I don't think. Yeah. America, maybe more so because more of you, which is great. More of you, more people, more MSs there.
Yeah, and I thought you did such a great job. What I really loved was just you really showed MS, not just sometimes people sugarcoat it, and you actually showed the reality of it. And I really appreciated that. I think sometimes people, try to make it like, oh, this is so great. You're like, no, it's actually not.
It's not great. It's not great. That's wrong.
There's one scene where I think you're sitting on the bench before you meet your old past love or whatever, and you're looking at these younger people. I don't know, I don't know if this was the intent, but you're.
It was. Well done, you got it good.
And you're kind of I do that. I look at dancers or people running, and I'm like, oh, I used to be able to do that back in the day.
And you feel jealous of their abilities to do anything they want. And think, and you feel like being cheated because you have been cheated. And I think that's issue, but it's hard. But then when you look at them, you think they're happy, they're doing good things, and they're enjoying their lives, which is how they should be doing. But equally, I feel a bit cheated.
Yeah. And I think I loved that scene because I'm looking at them like, oh my gosh, they're just moving in the world like a regular person because, they don't have those limitations. I don't move in the world at all like I used to. Everything has to be, I have to think about where I'm going and what I'm doing and what step I'm taking and what's in my way. And you don't have to think about that if you don't have a disability. So I love that scene because I could completely relate to what you were looking at.
I'm glad you got that because it was it's quite nuanced as the word goes. It's quite subtle, but you got it. I'm glad you did because it was meant to be what you've lost, what's been passed by now, and how you feel different to everyone else. That's meant to be that scene. So you got it. I'm glad you felt that.
Yeah, it's nice that it's nice to hear that it was received well in that way because that's been a massive part of your journey, Claire.
Where you lost. what people lose is it's so hidden away too. We're like not acknowledged enough how we lose everything. We lose all things, and that's not really understood by anyone really. So it's just to be. Hope we got that out there.
It's a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey that we have to face, and it makes us stronger for it. Though I think we're stronger for doing it. I think I'm better. Yeah. Do you think, so to MS wise, have you found anything good about it? Anything at all? Being diagnosed, do you feel anything good that happened that wouldn't happen otherwise?
That's a good question. I don't. I'd have to think about that. I think. Oh, any good things? I mean, physically, I wouldn't say any good things, but maybe slowing down and being okay with slowing down. I mean, I think I used to just run around because I had kids and a job and a husband, and I was just. I can't do that anymore. I can't run around. I can't even run 2 errands in a day. So I think maybe it forced me to slow down. I mean, probably more than I wanted to, but it does force you to slow down and appreciate. I'm trying to really appreciate the little things I did in the day. Like, oh my gosh, I cooked a meal or I did a load of laundry and it's hard, but to feel like, okay, like, oh, I cooked a meal and did a load of laundry today. Wow, that was a good day,
Good day. I get it. I see that too.
But would I have thought that before? I mean, that's what I did every day. And I wasn't proud of that,
When you stop and smell the roses, because MS makes you do that, you jump on the ground, you think, well, the things you've achieved and things you can do now, you think, oh, so you're pretty good at that. You think, I did a good job there. So you sort of see what's real in life, what's important and what's not. Things that don't count, you stop. You have no time for it now. Can't do this. People don't like, situations you didn't like, situations that made you feel bad, don't do them now. Anything that hurt me, I just ignore it now. So do things that count now.
And there's times I'm feeling down about it, like this just is terrible and how am I going to do this? I mean, there are definitely times I dwell on the future. And then there's times I'm working really hard on just, like I said, like being proud of little accomplishments and trying to, because I'm never going to have big ones like I used to. So the little ones have to kind of feel good and feel like I'm still, like work, the fact that I can still work, I'm really grateful. I don't know if I'll be able to work forever, but I'm grateful I can still work right now. And, I'm grateful that, I can sometimes cook a meal. I mean, there's, like the little things. I would love to walk my dog, but I can't walk my dog because that's just hard with balance and he pulls, I'm trying not to dwell on the things I can't do because there's a lot of them, but I'm trying. And like I said, some days I'm good at it and some days I'm not. Some days I'm just down about it. And
one thing that I wanted to put out in the movie was that it was said that my doctor in England years and years ago said to me, Claire, focus on things you can do, not things you can't do. Yeah. So I want it to be a mantra. People think, what can I do? I'm good. I like doing these things. And things I can't do I don't give me any time or thought now. It's wasted energy.
It's a big loss. I mean, I can't really exercise anymore. And that's hard because I was an athlete growing up and I ran for years. I can't really move in the world like exercise wise. Now I call my PT as just going to work, just like having to get up and get out the door and walk around is exercise for me now. And that's hard. I mean, for someone who that was like a stress relief, that's been a big challenge. But I'm just trying to, all right, I'm not going to run again. So I'm trying not to go back to that place. And some days I can walk and I'm happy because we have like a bench for my husband, like in a spot that he loved. And some days I can walk there, if I drive over and walk to the bench. And I'm trying to just be like, I walked to the bench today, and that's an accomplishment.
So Katie, can we, if you don't mind, ask about Chris and your husband and what he was like, and yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, after college, we both spent a year volunteering in Selma, Alabama, which you probably don't know in Australia, but it was kind of the heart of the civil rights movement from the 1960s. Oh, okay. It's where like Bloody Sunday happened, where they were marching, like the Black community was marching for civil rights. Wow. So we spent a year down there there were 10 of us right out of college, and we started dating like a month into the program at 22 years old. Oh. And he passed away a month shy of our 25th wedding anniversary. So we were together 28 years. It'll be 28 years this summer. He passed away. So we kind of grew up together. We were right out of college and then right up until 50. And he was just he was super athletic. So I think everyone is still shocked because he was probably in the best shape of anyone. He worked out like 6 days a week.
Wow.
He was a huge cycler. He rode his bike. He loved riding his bike. He was a skier, a runner, a hiker. So he was super outdoorsy. But he was very kind. He was just very sweet. Like everyone liked him because he was just no ego, just sweetest guy. Not like a big grand gesture guy, just a very thoughtful, sweet person. So it's a big loss. I mean, the last couple of years were hard because he was in a very stressful job, and I think that might have been one of the reasons he passed away. I think the stress really got to him, so that was hard. But he worked in he worked in like healthcare pretty much most of his life, doing different things. But he was running a company at the end, and I think it was just too much. But yeah, it's 3.5, it's going on 4 years this year, and it still is hard to believe that, he's gone. I mean, there's days I just can't get over it, but now I'm like, my boys are graduating high school. Now they're graduating college. So, I mean, in that time frame, I mean, life goes on, as you know, Claire, it goes on. I mean, whether you don't feel like you want it to, it still does. And, but he was amazing. I was so lucky because on the good days, I can just appreciate like how many people, got 25 years of a good marriage with someone. And, on the bad days, it's like you, I'm upset that I didn't get more or, it got cut short, but I was very, very lucky.
You look at it in a really nice way. Rather than being just depressed and down, you look at it in a really positive way. It's really impressive to see that way. You're being very upbeat about it, upbeat as you can be, but you're not wallowing in poor me. You're being quite I was lucky to gain that many years together. It's a beautiful way to look at it. I like that. Thank you.
I mean, there's people that don't ever find that in life. And there's, I have friends getting married at 50, which I love, and they might get their 25 years. And thank God I married him young at 22, because who would have thought it was cut short? I wasn't expecting that. So I feel very lucky that like the kids, he helped me get the kids to the point they were at. And I see a lot of him in the kids.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
I'll be like, your dad did that, or your dad was the same way. So that makes it nice because I can see each of them got a little bit of him in different ways.
I love that. That's your sons. Are your twin sons? Are they they look like him at all?
They do, yeah, and it's cute because all of them, all my kids are not super tall, and he wasn't super tall, and so all three of them. They're pretty close in height. They're maybe all like an inch apart, and they can all wear his clothes. So even my daughter, it's so cute. So they wear his clothes. Like, one will come home with his sweater on, and I'm like, oh, that's your dad. So it's cool that like they all are similar enough that they can still like wear his stuff. It's cute. My daughter wears his like winter coat, and the boys wear shirts and his pants, and so that part, I think that really helps. And we were a really tight-knit family, like because we had 3 kids in 3 years. They all got along really well. Like we were lucky, and they got along well. And so the 5 of us were pretty tight. Like we were piled in the car, we're going on a road trip, and we always got along. So I feel like they got that foundation before he passed away. Like we were a tight family of 5, and we're still a pretty tight family of 4.
That's good. Good for you. That's because of you. It's awesome.
I mean, now they're growing up. It's not the same, but now they're going to like do their own thing, which they should. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, coming into a new season, but when they come into the season after that, they'll be needing you.
We still need me, just not the same ways, but yes. Yeah. So like I said, some days I feel lucky. Some days I'm like, feel sorry for myself. It just kind of depends on the day.
That's it. It's just the ebb and flow of life, and you've been through a lot, you both have. And everything that you guys have spoken about today will be so relatable to all your listeners. So
trial you want now, the drug you're on right now, the trial. Can we keep up to you with terms of the results of the trial? I'm curious how it's going to go.
Yeah, so there's several BTK inhibitor trials going on, and I'm in one. Some of the data came out, and it was really confusing because it was kind of a mixed bag. They were like things they weren't expecting happened, and things that, like it's so the data takes forever. I mean, I'll finish the trial this year, and then hopefully the data comes out maybe by the end of the year. I just have to decide what I'm going to go on next. Do I go back on Ocrevus?
Okay.
or do I stay on this?
Yeah. You were saying Ocrevus for you perhaps didn't actually help for you, you think, Ocrevus?
Ocrevus did not really help me. I was declining pretty quickly on it.
So it didn't work then.
And it was supposed to stabilize. Is it worked for you?
It's brilliant. I love it.
See, and that's how most people are. Yeah.
It's hard to know because I moved house. I now live here on the farm and I'm very calm and very happy here. So the thing there, you can never tell if it's the drugs or if it's life. Am I healthier because I'm actually happier? It's hard to know what it really is. But I'm pretty sure the drug Ocrevus is just a great drug. But for me at least. Well, I want you to find a new one for you.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I also think I was going through menopause at the same time, which is another, now it's kind of becoming a thing in MS, but that doesn't help because you start declining anyway. So between Chris passing away and menopause and the stress and the drugs, I don't know what was what, but Ocrevus really wasn't helping that much. So everyone said, well, let's try this new one. And it's fine. I think it was so long before I got diagnosed. So I think so much of my damage was done before I even knew I had it.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a bummer.
And I'm hoping for in the future, they're going to find a drug that actually unwinds things. My hope is like a thing to remyelinate our brains. I'm so psyched for that. It'll happen one day, just not yet.
Yeah, me too. And then we'll be like walking and
I'll go, hi, hey, how are you? Let's go on holiday together. I'd love that. Yes.
that would be weird too. But yes, I'm hoping they're going to come up with that also.
I think it's a matter of time. I hope it's in our lifetime, not next generation, this generation. I hope they're fixing.
Yeah, I don't know about us, but maybe that,
Yeah, I think our kids are probably, my son's often said to me, Mum, will I get MS too? And I said, no, you won't. So I like to think that our kids, hopefully the cure will be found in the next generation. So our kids won't get it, I hope. Cross fingers. But I think we're the sort of generation that didn't have a cure for it. So maybe next generation hopefully will, like polio.
Yeah, and my daughter just did a trial where they're tracking her to make sure she doesn't have early signs. Oh, so here in Colorado, they're doing like especially girls, because girls are more at risk. So she just got her first MRI and she was fine, but they're tracking her to make sure that she doesn't have early signs so that she can get treated early if she does.
Well, it's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
I think it's be ahead of the curve. That's a better way. Waiting for it to hit us is the back of it. It's reactive rather than proactive. I like that part more.
Oh, thank you, Katie. Well,
thank you. Thank you for your help today.
Thanks for having me. It was so nice to get to meet you in person or over Zoom, both of you.